Hello everybody, I'm Rex. This is my economics project. I shall be talking about three principles and I shall be relating them to history. So the three principles we shall talk about are prices rise when government prints too much money, a country's standard of living depends on its ability to create goods and services, and markets are a good way to organize economic activity. So now I will talk about the first principle, which is prices rise when government prints too much money. This is closely tied to inflation, which is the sustained increase in the general price level of goods and services in an economy over a period of time. One prime example of this is the Weimar Republic, which is post-World War I Germany. So some of the causes of inflation in Germany. The reparations of France was not paid fast enough after World War I, which forced the Weimar Republic to print more money, which increased the money supply, but then the price levels increased to keep up with the increasing money supply that Germany was printing. Here we can see a graph of the German mark compared to a US dollar and its increase in a year. We can see in the beginning about 100 German marks equaled a US dollar, but then by the end of the year, due to over excessive printing of money, 1 US dollar equaled 10 billion German marks, which is a huge amount. Basically, all the savings that people were keeping were all worthless after 1 year. Hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is an extremely pumped up version of inflation. So the Weimar Germany's currency, the German mark, was hyperinflated. One prime example of this hyperinflation could be seen in the price of bread. In 1918, it cost only 1 mark for a loaf of bread. By November 15th, 1923, after the huge spike and inflation because of the printing money, bread cost 80 billion marks. So I shall now jump to the second principle, which is a country's standard of living depends on its ability to create goods and services. So what is GDP? So GDP is the market value of all final goods and services produced within a country in a given period of time. GDP is made up of consumption, which is basically people in the nation buying stuff, investment, such as investing in factories, in industry, in housing. Government spending could be military, it could be building highways, improving government infrastructure, and net exports. Net exports is the amount of goods a nation exports out minus the amount of good it imports. So say if I export $2,000 worth of goods and I import $1,000 worth of good, my net export is $1,000. So we have a study here, the GDP of Japan versus the GDP of Sudan per capita in 2014. The estimated Japanese GDP per capita is about 38,216 US dollars, while the GDP per capita in Sudan was only $2,000. Why is Japan's GDP so much higher than Sudan's? We have to look at GDP's components. GDP's components consist of consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. The standard of living in Japan is better, which increases consumption because people have more money to spend. Current events such as war and terrorism has affected Sudan's GDP because people are wary and they're scared to spend. Japan's exports are more than Sudan. Japan exports many cars and many products to, say, many places around the world. The car you are driving, if it's a Toyota, Honda, Nissan, you name it, is made in Japan. The last principle I shall cover is markets are a good way to organize economic activity. This principle I shall be using the Cold War as a prime example, as this principle covers open economies versus closed economies. So I shall now talk a bit about Cold War economics. The Western side, which is, you could say, the democratic opposition, supported an open economy, while the communists had more of a closed economy, a government-run economy. Now the open economies of the West had a free market, which meant that nations in the West could trade with each other. The government leaves the economy to run by itself. The international community engages and businesses conduct trades without the watchful eye of the government. A closed economy completely factors out net exports, and their GDP is counted by consumption versus plus investment plus government spending. A country is supposed to run self-sufficiently. So in this case, the Eastern Bloc ran self-sufficiently because it did not trade with anyone else, it didn't trade at all. It just stayed by itself. And the result of Cold War economics, the government-controlled economy did nothing. It did nothing but weaken the Eastern economies. Soviet-controlled markets could not support themselves because they did not have enough infrastructure after World War II to prosper. While in the West, the Marshall Plan, Western economics opened up to free trade, bringing huge economic boom to post-war West Europe. Basically, what the Marshall Plan did was inject tons of US dollars into Western Europe and open up trade borders so that the West could trade with each other. While trading with each other, the GDP of each country, of all the Western countries, rises, and with the money, the Western countries could build up infrastructure. So as you can see here, GDP ties in with Cold War economics immensely, as consumption, which is the wealth of Western European countries, which increased massively under the Marshall Plan, government spending, which is basically the injection of US dollars into the European society, which allowed investing in industries and factories. And also free trade, which increased net exports of many countries and made them much money. And that is why the West prospered so much more, and the Soviets were about 10-20 years behind when the Soviet bloc fell. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. As John Maynard Keynes would say, ideas shape the course of history. So what history is modern world economics going to make now?